Did she just slap him? The voice came from a woman in pearls, clutching her Gucci tote. She wasn't the only one staring. Passengers in the VIP boarding zone paused, heads turning toward Gate 9. Some blinked in disbelief. Others reached for their phones. Tasha Linton didn't care. She stood tall in her pressed navy blazer, hands still midair, eyes sharp enough to slice steel. "You don't belong here," she barked at the black man crouched under the left wing of the hybrid jet. "Step away from the aircraft, now!" The man, grease on his hand, sleeves rolled up, collar faded, stood up slowly. He didn't raise his voice, didn't ask why. He just looked at her like she was noise. Then he said calmly, "Ma'am, if I don't reroute the sync coil in the next 3 minutes, this billion-dollar jet is going to shake itself off the runway at liftoff." Tasha scoffed. "Spare me the tech talk. This is a secure flight. You're just a ground hand, probably here to sweep the tarmac." Someone behind her snorted. A teenage girl in a Stanford hoodie, now recording on her phone, whispered to her friend. She slapped him, then said, "Go sweep the tarmac." Oh, she's done. What would you do if someone slapped you at work, in front of a plane full of people? Tell us where you're watching from. Jeremiah Owens said nothing. He crouched again and reached inside the service panel, unfazed. He didn't need to defend himself. The wires would do it for him. Inside the belly of the Lilium X-9, the hybrid coil was misfiring, its magnetic polarity drifting off-center. Left unchecked, the entire aircraft could enter a destabilized lift spiral. That kind of failure didn't make headlines. It made casualties. But Jeremiah knew the system better than anyone, because he built it. Not just this plane, but the very technology the company depended on. A decade ago, they scrubbed his name from the patent and sold his work to private aerospace firms under company assets. So, he walked away. Until today. "You've got some nerve," Tasha muttered, watching him reconnect the ground harnesses. "Acting like you're some kind of engineer. You people always pushing into spaces you don't belong." A few heads turned at that. Jeremiah stood again, wiped his hands, and looked her dead in the eye. "I belong exactly where I am." The technician on shift, Derek, clipboard still clutched to his chest, ran over, wide-eyed. Whoa, is this real? Did she just..." Jeremiah raised one hand. "It's handled." "No, man, that's not okay. I saw that. She hit you. That's assault." "She's loud. I'm used to loud." Derek opened his mouth, but Jeremiah was already walking off the tarmac, toolbox in hand. He didn't look back. Didn't need to. The jet had stopped humming wrong. The panel was sealed. The magnetic field was rebalanced. It would fly. Because of him. 10 minutes later, in a quiet wing of the Tech Grid Operations Building, Jeremiah stood in front of a secured biometric scanner. He slid a badge from inside his wallet. One with no company logo, no job title, just a name. The scanner blinked green. Doors opened. Inside, a touchscreen flared to life. Tech Grid Black Panel Access. Authorized. He tapped once, pressed a 6-digit override code, then placed his thumb on the emergency authorization pad. A warning flashed. "This action will revoke real-time chip functionality from all contracts tied to hybrid flight control systems across Quantec, Apex Sky, Verticair, and Lyra Fly." "Proceed?" He pressed yes. At that exact moment, 4 control towers across the country went red. Chip handshake failure. AI stabilization revoked. Navigation sync lost. All Lilium X-9 takeoffs suspended. 1.2 BB in contracts frozen for breach of ethics review. Back at Gate 9, Tasha Linton's smile dropped when her company iPad locked itself out with a red screen. Flight crew access suspended. Compliance review pending. And the Stanford girl, still filming, still smiling. "That's what we call consequences," she whispered. Meanwhile, Jeremiah stepped out into the daylight, toolbox still in hand. His phone buzzed. "Tech Grid Legal. We've flagged the incident. Passenger video acquired." Crew member under investigation. Internal ethics team notified. He didn't gloat, didn't tweet, didn't explain, because Jeremiah Owens didn't need to shout. The system would speak for him. The sun hadn't fully risen over Tech Valley, but Jeremiah was already back at his garage. He pulled the metal door halfway shut behind him, not to keep people out, but to keep the world quiet. The kind of quiet where machines could breathe and thoughts had room to stretch. The same worn flight jacket hung by the door, his father's jacket, a Vietnam vet, a man who taught him how to break apart engines like puzzles. Fixing things wasn't just a job, it was blood memory. Jeremiah moved to the workbench. Wires, panels, magnets. No noise, no judgment, just precision. He sat down and powered up the small prototype on his desk, a personal project he never let anyone see. It looked like an oversized circuit board, but embedded inside was something more. A miniaturized version of the sync control chip he had designed a decade ago, before it was stolen, before they erased his name. 10 years ago, back when Quantech had been a scrappy startup with one foot in aerospace and the other in DC lobby offices. Back when they came to him, a self-taught systems engineer with nothing but notebooks and a wild theory about quantum-latched polarity. Back when they called him brilliant, until the moment he asked for equity. Then came the silence, the legal language, the threats, and finally, the confidential reassignment of intellectual property. They buried him under paperwork, stripped his name from the filing, and locked it all under a patent cluster tied to a fake shell firm. Jeremiah didn't fight, not with lawyers. He walked away and started quietly building the next thing. His phone buzzed. It was Nina, the only person at TechGrid who still had his number. Nina, I heard, Gate 9, that girl's video is already getting traction. You okay? Jeremiah stared at the screen. He didn't text back, not yet. Instead, he walked over to a dusty file cabinet and opened the third drawer. Inside were neatly stacked manila folders, dates, reports, copies of old design drafts with his initials in the corners, and a single document, laminated. It was the original schematic, the one that matched the core build of the current Quantech hybrid chip. There, in faded blue ink, were the words, Owens Lock Config V1.3, signed off 11/12/2013. Locke was his old partner, the only one who'd stayed silent when the company folded him out of history. That silence still stung. Jeremiah slid the folder back and turned to the whiteboard behind his desk. He picked up a marker and wrote two names, Quantech, Tasha Linton. He stared at them. Tasha was a symptom, not the disease. Her slap was public, but what she represented had been slapping him in the face for years. Dismissal, disrespect, disbelief that someone like him could know more, build more, be more. But now he had more than proof. He had leverage. Across town, in a glass tower lined with LED panels, a crisis team at Quantech was already scrambling. CEO Harper Dane stood with his back to a room of advisors, watching 4 red lights blink on a dashboard screen. Apex Sky, Verticaire, Lyrafly, and their own, Quantech, were all reporting system integrity failures. The chip was failing across multiple aircraft, which meant Jeremiah had activated the kill switch, which meant he hadn't just fixed the jet, he'd just pulled their spine out by hand. Back in his garage, Jeremiah finally replied to Nina. Jeremiah, I need 72 hours. Can you get me into the next funding round review? Nina, you're asking to present? Publicly? Jeremiah, no. I'm asking to make them flinch. Nina, copy that. You got 72. I'll cover the rest. He tossed the phone on the desk, then picked up a soldering pen. If they wanted a war, they'd get one. But not with noise, with silence, with systems, with the truth written into every line of code they thought they owned. That night, Jeremiah drove out to the overlook by the old airstrip. He sat on the hood of his truck and looked down at the lights of Techport blinking far below. All those suits, all those polished people in boardrooms who'd never even touched a coil in their lives. They forgot something. They forgot that you can't fly without the ground crew. You can't soar without the man under the wing. And you damn sure don't slap the man holding your flight together with 2 wires and 30 years of grit. He sat in silence, the prototype chip in his palm. It pulsed once, soft blue, like it knew. Tomorrow, they'd start asking who he was, and Jeremiah Owens would make sure they never forgot again. Somewhere above Manhattan, a commercial hybrid jet circled for the 3rd time. In the cockpit, the captain's voice cracked through the intercom. "We've been advised of a delay in navigation reauthorization. Please remain seated." Passengers groaned. But it wasn't just this flight. Across 4 major airlines, Quantec, Apex Sky, Vertic Air, and Lyra Fly, pilots were receiving the same message. Flight control chip authorization suspended. All hybrid aircraft must delay departure or prepare for emergency landing. No one knew why, except one man. And he was sitting alone in a garage in Tech Valley, finishing the last line of code in an encrypted module titled Ethics Protocol v2.0, Asset Accountability Trigger. Meanwhile, in the marble-glassed nerve center of Quantec, panic was no longer a rumor. Harper Dane, the CEO, slammed his hand against the touchscreen boardroom table. "Find out who accessed the root kill switch. I want names. I want footage. I want them buried." His legal counsel stammered. "Sir, the only digital signature tied to the trigger is a legacy badge. From Black Panel clearance, pre-merger era." Everyone froze. No one had touched that level of access in nearly a decade. Dane narrowed his eyes. "Whose badge?" The head of security answered slowly. "Owens." Back at TechGrid, Nina tapped through her dashboard in disbelief. "Jeremiah, what the hell did you do?" He didn't look up, just said quietly, "I gave the industry a choice." What kind of choice? Between ethics and exposure. 5 hours earlier, Jeremiah had quietly activated a clause he embedded in his original design, one that automatically revoked control rights from any airline found in violation of passenger or staff discrimination policies linked to system-certified personnel. He had hard-coded it into the original firmware kernel 10 years ago, and because they never gave him proper IP credit, they never knew it was there. So when Tasha Linton slapped him, when that video went viral, and when a publicly verifiable ethics breach was filed, the system shut itself down. Quantec's PR team scrambled. Emails flew, threats circled. And in a nondescript glass building outside DC, a department within the Federal Ethics in Aviation Office, FEAO, had quietly opened a compliance violation folder tied to the chip infrastructure. The email subject line read, "Jeremiah Owens, patent anomaly flagged, urgent." Back in Tech Valley, Jeremiah drove out to an unmarked address, a low-profile server farm that housed the backup for TechGrid Fund's legal infrastructure. The guard at the entrance stopped him. "Sir, this area is restricted." Jeremiah held up a badge. Not a name badge, a clearance token. The man's face dropped. "Understood. Proceed." Inside, Jeremiah met with Alma Reyes, legal strategist for TechGrid Fund, and the only person who ever believed him when he said, "They stole everything." She slid a folder across the table. "It's all here. Time-stamped footage, flight deck logs, her slap, her slur, the suspended takeoffs. You've got the industry by the tail." He didn't smile. "That's not the win I want." She nodded. "Then what?" "I want structural change." She blinked. "You mean policy?" "I mean power. I want this system to know. Next time someone's humiliated in public for just doing their job, the system reacts." She leaned back. "Jeremiah, you realize what you're saying? This isn't just about ethics now. You're rewriting the chain of command." "Good," he said. "Because I've been at the bottom long enough to know, no one at the top listens unless you hit them in the contracts." Across town, Tasha Linton sat alone in a break room, her company tablet seized, her uniform badge temporarily revoked. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through TikTok. There it was. Her face, her slap, her words. Millions of views. Comments lit up. She really said, "You people? Oh no." He kept his cool. I'd have sued her and the airline. Don't mess with quiet black men who fix things. That man owns your flight now. Then came the hashtags. Had slapback justice Hanash mechanic behind. The Jet Telltales moment. Her career wasn't just under review, it was on fire. Meanwhile, Jeremiah sat at the edge of his garage with an old file folder open on his lap. Inside was a photo, him and his late mentor, Charles Locke, shaking hands in front of the first prototype chip in 2012. He whispered to the photo, "You said one day they'd come knocking." Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Mr. Owens, this is the FAA Director's Office. We're requesting an urgent conversation regarding your IP claim and industry shutdown." He stared at the screen, then answered calmly, "Only if it's recorded." By morning, 4 major headlines hit national news. 1.2 billion contracts frozen after racial incident triggers ethics lockout. FAA launches probe into Quantex's chip infrastructure and stolen patents. Unknown mechanic behind safety kill switch reveals deeper flaw in system. Industry ethics compliance to be tied to in-flight crew behavior starting Q4. And in small print buried on page 5 of Tech Daily, Jeremiah Owens, 49, systems engineer and original architect of the hybrid flight stabilization chip, confirms long suspected ties to TechGrid Fund, the private equity body holding majority arbitration rights over aerospace patents filed between 2010 to 2017. He didn't need applause. He didn't need revenge. He just needed the system to stop pretending people like him didn't build it. The boardroom at Quantec HQ smelled like fear. Filtered air, expensive leather, and a trace of desperation. 12 executives sat around a long obsidian table. Behind them, an entire legal team stood stiff, blinking into silence as the doors opened. Jeremiah Owens stepped inside. No suit, no tie, just a clean black shirt, sleeves rolled up, and the faint scent of jet fuel still clinging to his skin. Harper Dane stood first. "Mr. Owens, I believe there's been some misunderstanding." "No, Harper," Jeremiah interrupted. "There's been a decade of theft. What you're experiencing now is clarity." Dead silence. The room tensed. Only one voice broke it. Maggie Lowell, head of strategic risk. "What exactly do you want?" Jeremiah dropped a small black case on the table. It clicked open, revealing a single silver chip, marked with an etched JO initials and a 2012 patent date. "Everything you're flying with today started here, in my garage, with my name on that chip. And for the past 10 years, you've used it, built on it, and erased me from every credit sheet." "You were paid," Dane snapped, "for a prototype, not for my system, and not for my ethics module." The room shuffled. Jeremiah looked around. "You want to know why 143 flights got held midair? Why 4 of your competitors had their boardrooms crash within an hour of each other? Why the FAA just subpoenaed your back-end logs?" He leaned in, calm, icy, clear. "Because I wrote the rule that if any airline using my chip ever assaulted a certified crew member or technical contractor in uniform, the system would shut them down." Maggie blinked. "You predicted this?" "I protected against it." A long silence fell. Then Harper smirked. "So what do you want? Money? We'll pay." Jeremiah didn't blink. "I want names." "Excuse me? I want every executive that signed off on suppressing my patent. I want every director who voted to license my chip without attribution. And I want a public apology, not to me, but to every black mechanic, janitor, engineer, and tech you've overlooked because of how we look." One man at the far end scoffed. "This isn't about race." Jeremiah turned. "You sure?" He reached into his pocket and placed a flash drive on the table. "Because here are internal emails from 3 years ago. Don't spotlight Owens. He's not boardroom friendly. He photographs like a janitor. No one moved. Then, the door opened again. A woman walked in. Elegant, older, black power suit. She moved like someone used to commanding attention. "Who is this?" Harper frowned. Jeremiah answered. "This is Vivian Keene, lead counsel for the Tech Grid Fund, and the woman holding the arbitration rights over your next $400 million tech contract." Vivian smiled coldly. "I'm also here to inform you that the fund is freezing all pending disbursements until Quantech undergoes a full ethics compliance audit. That includes your executive ranks, your flight crew evaluation system, and your partner firm's hiring practices." "You can't do that," someone barked. She pulled a thin folder from her briefcase. "We already did, and the FAA has approved our ethics tiering framework under the Flight Justice Pilot Program. Starting next quarter, airlines without verified anti-discrimination protocols will lose federal safety alignment priority. You fail that, you lose international clearance." A pin could have dropped. Outside the boardroom, Tasha Linton stood behind a glass wall, watching. Her eyes were red, not just from the shame, but from something deeper. Guilt. She'd watched the footage. Watched herself slap a man doing his job. Watched the world replay it over and over with captions like, "This is what systemic disrespect looks like." He stayed calm. That's power. Watch her career dissolve in real time. She'd been suspended indefinitely. But worse, she wasn't sure she even wanted it back. In the boardroom, Harper leaned forward, tone ice cold. "You're burning bridges, Owens. Be careful. This industry is small." Jeremiah picked up the flash drive. "No, Harper. You already burned the bridges. I'm just the one standing on the other side, holding the matches you left behind." He walked out. That night, a press conference was held, not by Jeremiah, by Vivian Keene, standing beside a FAA spokesperson and 3 legal analysts. The microphone squeaked. Vivian cleared her throat. "We are here to confirm that effective immediately, 4 airlines will undergo mandatory review under the Ethics Integration Pilot. The technology that allows our jets to fly was born from the mind of a man the system tried to erase. His name is Jeremiah Owens, and thanks to his work, we now have a system that can detect and respond to ethical failures in real time." Tasha watched it from her couch. Next to her sat a box of her old badges. She picked one up, ran her fingers across the name. Tasha Linton, crew lead. Then she turned to her laptop, opened a blank document, and wrote, "To Mr. Owens, I was wrong." She didn't know if she'd send it, but for the first time, she felt like she needed to say it. Back in Tech Valley, Jeremiah returned to his garage. Nina was waiting, holding 2 beers. "That went well," she smiled. "I didn't punch anyone," he said. "So, yeah." They clinked bottles. She looked at him. "So what now? Lawsuits? Buyouts? Redemption arc?" Jeremiah walked over to the workbench, laid out 3 new chip prototypes. "None of that," he said. "We build a system where no one ever needs to shut down the sky just to be treated with respect." She nodded, and for the first time in a long time, he smiled. The light from the hallway cast a soft orange glow across Tasha Linton's apartment. It was 2:47 a.m. She hadn't slept. Not really. Not since that day on the tarmac. Not since the sound of her palm cracking against Jeremiah Owens's face became a viral ringtone. She sat at her kitchen counter, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee, staring at a paused video still on her laptop screen. Her own face. Eyes narrowed, jaw tight, hand mid-swing. She pressed play again. The slap, the silence. His stare, calm, quiet, unmoving. And the way she spun around, still believing she'd won something. Now, all she could think was, what the hell was I trying to prove? Her phone buzzed. A message from her sister, Kayla. "Girl, Mom saw the footage." She ain't say a word, just shook her head. That was worse. Another buzz, an email, from HR. Subject, Disciplinary review extension, pending termination hearing. Tasha closed the laptop. Her apartment, once spotless, was now scattered with unopened mail, crumpled napkins, and a growing army of takeout boxes. She didn't care. Couldn't. Shame was heavy. It clung to everything. But deeper than the shame was the memory of the look on Jeremiah's face. Not angry, not vengeful, just disappointed. Like he'd expected it. Like she'd confirmed some ugly truth he'd long carried. Down the coast, back in Tech Valley, Jeremiah was awake too. But not from regret, from calculations. 3 different monitors lit up his garage office. On one, FAA ethics framework draft. On another, proposed interface designs for what Nina jokingly dubbed the Sky Conscience system. On the third screen, an incoming video call. Vivian Keene. He answered. "Still up?" "Always," she said. "Nice to know you don't sleep either." Jeremiah smiled. Barely. She continued. "I got the early results from the public sentiment tracker. You're polling as heroic disruptor in 42 states. Even the conservative boards are calling you brilliant but dangerous, which honestly is a win." He leaned back. "I didn't want to be anyone's headline." "Well, too bad. You became one, and now we use it." She paused. "Jeremiah, the fund wants to offer you a full buyout of your arbitration rights. $14.2 million up front, plus executive role on the ethics board. You'd lead the National Evaluation Framework." He didn't speak right away. Vivian studied his face. Then, "Unless you're planning something else." Jeremiah exhaled. "I'm not done yet." That morning, he and Nina stood before a whiteboard that stretched across the length of his office. On it, a flowchart labeled Flight Justice Index, FJI. Colored arrows connected metrics like onboard crew interactions, contractor respect incidents, passenger complaint depth, social media volatility rate, power differential triggers. Nina whistled. "This isn't a rating system. It's a social barometer." "That's the point," Jeremiah said. "Airlines respond to pressure, not principle. So, I'm building the pressure into the infrastructure." She tapped a square labeled Crew Equity Protocol, CEP. "Sounds like you're trying to engineer morality." He looked at her. "I'm trying to make disrespect cost something." Across town, at a small therapy office just outside San Mateo, Tasha Linton sat on a worn leather couch. This wasn't her first session, but it was the first one where she talked. The therapist, a calm, middle-aged woman named Dr. Reynolds, listened quietly. "I didn't even think," Tasha was saying. "I just reacted. I saw him under the plane. I assumed he didn't belong, and when he said it was his system, I thought, there's no way." She wiped her nose. "I didn't question whether I was wrong, just doubled down." Dr. Reynolds nodded. "Why do you think that was?" Tasha looked down. "Because if I was wrong, then I wasn't just rude. I was dangerous." She paused. "And deep down, I think I've been that kind of dangerous more times than I care to count." That evening, she sat in her car outside Quantec HQ. Not to beg for her job, to return her badge. She walked to the front desk, placed it on the counter, and said quietly, "I won't be coming back." The receptionist said nothing. Tasha turned, walked out. Lighter. Then she reached for her phone, typed out a text. To Jeremiah Owens. "I'm sorry, I know that doesn't fix it, but I needed you to hear it." She hit send, didn't expect a reply. Jeremiah read it late that night, didn't respond, not yet. Instead, he wrote a note to himself. If redemption is real, it should change systems, not just people. 2 days later, the FAA released a statement. In partnership with the Tech Grid Fund and verified developer Jeremiah Owens, the Flight Justice Index will be piloted across 5 major carriers beginning next quarter. That same day, 4 more mechanics across the country shared stories of mistreatment. One posted a photo of a union patch with the caption, "We're not just fixing planes anymore, we're fixing the damn sky." Tasha read it from her phone while boarding a regional flight home to Michigan. She kept her head down, avoided eye contact with the new crew. As she took her seat, the flight attendant, a young Latina woman, leaned in and whispered, "Hey, just so you know, some of us saw you do the right thing. We saw the footage of you turning in your badge. That took guts." Tasha blinked, then nodded. "Thank you." The woman smiled. "Let's get this bird off the ground, yeah?" Tasha looked out the window as the plane pulled onto the runway. Somewhere above her, jets were now flying with Jeremiah's code keeping them honest. Back in Tech Valley, Jeremiah stood in front of a packed auditorium. The first public ethics board hearing was underway. Vivian introduced him simply. "This is the man who taught the sky to say no." He took the mic and didn't talk about algorithms or lawsuits. He said, "I was slapped on a runway, not just by a hand, but by every assumption people like me carry, that we're not supposed to be at the table, not supposed to build things, that if we are good with our hands, we can't be great with our minds. But I'm not here to punish the sky, I'm here to rebuild it, because dignity doesn't have a dress code, and respect should never need to file a patent." The crowd stood, not because it was polite, but because it was right. 3 days after Jeremiah's ethics hearing, the footage of the slap hit 12 million views. Not because of outrage, because of the quiet, because a man was humiliated in public and didn't explode. He absorbed it. He stared at it. And then he rebuilt the world that allowed it. Bernard "Skip" Moultrie, a veteran black mechanic with 28 years under his belt, stood watching the clip on his phone. Younger techs gathered around. One of them nudged him. "Hey Skip, wasn't Jeremiah your apprentice back in '09? Skip chuckled. "That boy knew systems like a preacher knows scripture. Told me once, 'Mr. Moultrie, planes lie, but math don't.'" The guys laughed, but Skip didn't, not fully. He zoomed in on Jeremiah's face after the slap. "I told him once the sky ain't fair," he muttered. "Guess he decided to make it fair." Amelia Zhang, a flight attendant for Skyreach, stared down at her tablet. Internal memo. Flight Justice Index Compliance Audit to begin Q2. Underneath, crew are advised to undergo updated ethics refresher modules. Behavior will be measured, weighted, and submitted to independent board. Her co-lead, Jordan, groaned. "Seriously? They're gonna rate us like Uber drivers now?" Amelia shrugged. "Maybe some of us should have been rated all along." He glanced at her. "You mean like Tasha?" Amelia didn't answer, but she didn't look away either. A user posted, "Jeremiah Owens is what happens when black excellence meets aerospace systems and chooses justice over vengeance." And then another, "I've worked 7 years in aviation tech and never once saw a man like him at the decision table. Let him build the whole damn table." Within an hour, the hashtag #HatchSkyJustice trended in 17 states. Fatima El-Khoury, a hijabi North African-American aircraft mechanic, stood at the mic during the open assembly. Her voice was clear, clipped, professional. "We've all been shouted at on the tarmac. We've all been told to know our place. But Jeremiah didn't shout back. He built a place instead. One where respect is measurable, where systems can't ignore it anymore." Applause. A voice from the back. "Fatma, you down to help draft the mechanics' union response?" She nodded. "Let's not just react, let's architect." Atlanta. Inside Quantech's executive conference room, CEO Elena Brightstone was not in a good mood. She threw down the latest Forbes spread. The cover? "The Mechanic Who Rewired the Sky," subhead, "How Jeremiah Owens' System Forced an Industry-Wide Reckoning." "We're no longer just a tech firm," she snapped. "We're the villain in a Telltale's video. That's a brand problem." Her legal officer, Harlan, cleared his throat. "Actually, we're named directly in the FAA's Phase 2 rollout. If we resist the FJI, We'll lose our tech partner certifications by fall. Silence. Then, find me Tasha Linton. Tasha opened her door to find two Quantech reps on her porch. One was from HR. The other wore the smug badge of brand crisis PR. We're extending an offer, they said. To be a face of the new initiative, internal reform, diversity accountability. We'll coach you, manage the optics. Tasha cut them off. You want to use me to say, look, we're fixing it. They hesitated. Tasha folded her arms. I'm not interested in being your mascot of redemption. They tried again. You could help change the system. I already hurt the system, she said. Now it's my job to listen to the people building what comes next. She shut the door. Quietly this time. Nina tapped a screen. We just crossed our 500th whistleblower submission. Stories from pilots, mechanics, gate agents, even airport janitors. Jeremiah looked at the screen. Names, timestamps, airline tags. All anonymous. All real. They've been waiting for someone to say it was okay to speak, she added. He leaned forward. We need to verify and publish a sample set, not names. Just patterns, so the public sees what we've buried. Nina nodded. Then she smiled. Also, we just got a direct call from the Department of Transportation. They want to trial the FJI on military contractor fleets. Jeremiah froze. Military flights? Yeah. They said the current chain of accountability is fragile. He let out a breath. So it's not just commercial anymore. Nope, she grinned. You're officially in the sky and the state. A host turned to civil rights historian Dr. Julianne Monroe. What's your take on this? Is this a moment or a movement? Dr. Monroe adjusted her glasses. It's both, she said. What Jeremiah Owens did wasn't just technological. It was moral engineering. He quantified what black people have been saying for decades. We're not imagining the disrespect. We're surviving it. More importantly, he didn't burn the system. He debugged it. From Tasha Linton, subject. I won't ask for forgiveness. I watched the hearing. I saw the crowd stand for you. I'm not writing to apologize again. You already know I regret it, but I wanted you to know. I'm taking a job at a youth outreach program for women in aviation, teaching what I was never taught. Not about planes, about power. Thank you for showing us all how to hold it right. Tasha Jeremiah sat alone in his garage that night. He read the email. Then he looked up at the monitor, where a live map showed airlines now deploying FJI metrics in real time. Red flashes when equity dropped. Green pulses when crew scores rose. It looked almost like a heartbeat. He thought of something his mother used to say. Fair doesn't mean the same for everyone. Fair means the right thing, at the right time, for the right reason. He clicked a button to push the next update, not to fix the sky, but to keep teaching it how to fly fair. It started with a simple press release. FAA temporarily suspends certification for Sky Quanta Airlines. But what it triggered wasn't simple at all. Acting Director Marisol Chen stood before a room full of journalists, eyes level and clear. The footage seen across the world was not just disturbing, it was diagnostic, she said. She tapped a screen. Behind her, a still frame. Tasha mid-slap, Jeremiah mid-blink. Sky Quanta's internal response failed at every procedural checkpoint. Therefore, effective immediately, we are suspending their domestic and international certification for 30 days pending investigation. Gasps. This is not punishment. This is a reboot. Boardroom lights were off. Only the screens glowed. Charts. Stock dips. Media sentiment. Live protests at 4 airports. One exec whispered, "They're saying it's the biggest operational grounding since 9/11. Another added, "We've lost $1.2 billion in pending defense tech partnerships because of FJI non-compliance." The CEO, Elena Brightstone, turned toward her advisor. "Where the hell is Jeremiah Owens now?" The room went quiet, because they all knew. He wasn't hiding. He was presenting. Jeremiah stood on stage, no suit, just his navy work jacket with a FJI patch now stitched above the pocket. Behind him was a sleek dashboard of real-time ethical performance from over 87 airlines, color-coded, quantified, and live. "Systems that measure safety already exist," he said calmly. "But we forgot to measure something more critical: dignity." A beat. The Flight Justice Index is now open source. Every airline that wishes to restore public trust must adopt it, or explain to the world why they won't. The applause didn't explode. It rolled like thunder. User Grace. In Montana, 55, this man isn't just a mechanic. He's a moral engineer. I cried watching him speak. User Soul Justice, 74. He said more with quiet math than 100 outrage rants. Respect. User Air Mama 62. To tell me where you're watching from. Brooklyn here. And yes to this kind of leadership. It's about time. Jeremiah sat calmly at the hearing table, flanked by FAA reps and whistleblower lawyers. A senator asked, "Mr. Owens, do you believe this index could have prevented the incident you endured?" Jeremiah responded softly, "No system prevents hatred, but transparency makes it harder to hide behind uniforms." Another senator leaned in. "What if airlines refuse this?" Jeremiah didn't blink. "Then the public deserves to know which carriers believe dignity is optional." A junior executive slammed a report down. "6 of our competitors just signed the Owens Accord." "What?" "It's the Global Charter for Flight Ethics Compliance. Jeremiah's team drafted it overnight. They've got 9 countries reviewing it." An older VP sighed. "If we don't sign, we'll be blacklisted by every ethics-driven investor group from here to Oslo." "Are we really letting a mechanic dictate policy now?" The VP stared at him. "No. We're watching a mechanic fix what none of us had the courage to admit was broken." The acting CEO, cornered by investor revolt, stood on camera. "I want to publicly state our failure. We silenced, denied, and retaliated against a man who tried to serve, not himself, but the aircraft, the passengers, and the system." A pause. "As of today, we have signed the Owens Accord. Our operations will resume once we pass full compliance review." Murmurs across staff rooms nationwide. One mechanic whispered, "He built a table, and now they're all crawling to sit at it." Nina walked in holding a letter. "You need to see this." He unfolded it. "Jeremiah, we just received the first non-commercial carrier request. The White House's own executive airlift fleet wants to integrate FJI. They're asking if you'd personally oversee the onboarding. You built a system for fairness. Turns out, even power wants a little help keeping itself honest." Jeremiah leaned back, didn't smile, just exhaled. The sky was changing. Somewhere, a mother sat her daughter down in front of a screen. She played the video again. The slap, the silence, the rebuild. And she said, "You see that man? He didn't scream. He didn't throw fists. He made something better than noise. He made consequences." Tasha Linton hadn't left her apartment in 6 days. The blinds stayed drawn. The fridge sat untouched. Her phone buzzed, vibrated, screamed, then died, buried under a pillow she refused to move. At first, she told herself it would blow over. Just another media cycle. They'll find something new to hate. But they didn't. Video titled Kim, Flight Attendant Slaps Black Mechanic, then Loses Her Life in 10 Minutes. Views, 9.4 M. Comments, 42K. She didn't just slap him. She slapped every man who ever got dismissed in a uniform. She looks right at him like he's nothing. That look is what broke me. She deserves to be fired, charged, and banned from every airline ever. And then came the edits. Freeze frames, replays, side-by-sides of Jeremiah at TechCon with her slap in slow motion. One influencer dubbed it, "the strike that sparked justice." A knock at the door. She flinched. Another knock, then a voice, familiar, aged but soft. "Tasha, it's Mom." She opened it halfway. Her mother stepped in, looked around. Silence. Then the older woman whispered, "You were raised better." Tasha sat down on the edge of her couch, shoulders drooped. "I didn't even think. He was just there, in the way, and I just—" Her mother didn't interrupt. She simply said, "He wasn't in your way. You were in his sky." FAA Press Office. Internal Brief. Subject: Personnel Review. Former Sky Quanta Flight Attendant Tasha Linton. Summary: 2 prior complaints from passengers. Microaggressions, dismissive tone. No formal disciplinary action prior to the Jeremiah Owens incident. Media pressure has made her a symbol, not just a staff member. FAA recommends psychological evaluation before re-entry into any commercial flight environment. Guest: Nina Randolph, host. "So, you're close with Jeremiah Owens?" Nina: "I am, but I'm not here as his spokesperson." Host: "Tasha Linton released a statement today. She says the pressure has been unbearable. She's contemplating things." Nina's face hardened. "I'm sorry she's struggling, but let's be clear. This isn't just about her anymore." She leaned forward. "Jeremiah got slapped in front of 180 people. Then he went home, built an index, and changed the world. If she wants healing, start by acknowledging what she broke." Tasha sat across from Dr. Simone Garner, a black therapist with a quiet strength. "I know you don't know me," Tasha began, voice cracking, "but I'm not a monster." Dr. Garner nodded slowly. "Okay, so who are you?" "I was just trying to keep control. The cabin was chaos, and he didn't answer me right away." "You wanted control. But what if your training had taught you instead to want connection?" Tasha fell silent. "Has it occurred to you," the doctor said gently, "that Jeremiah might have been trying to protect your plane, even when you didn't protect him?" Tears slipped quietly. "I ruined everything, didn't I?" Dr. Garner nodded again, not harshly, just truthfully. "Now you get to decide what you do with that ruin." A viral movement rose unexpectedly, led not by aviation insiders, but by a teacher in Missouri. She wrote, "If we're demanding systems change, we also have to believe people can. Jeremiah didn't just build tech, he built truth, and truth should make room for growth, not just punishment." The petition hit 500K signatures in a week. Nina read it. Jeremiah saw it too, but neither responded. Not yet. The air was crisp. Jeremiah was beneath the nose of a training jet when he heard footsteps. He didn't look up, not until the voice. "Mr. Owens!" He turned, and there she was, Tasha. No makeup, no badge, just a woman. Jeremiah stood slow. "I didn't come for redemption," she began. "I'm not asking for that." He raised an eyebrow. "Then what are you asking?" She held up a small, worn notebook. "It's a log of every incident I mishandled, every microaggression I let slide, every name I never learned." She stepped forward. "I brought it because I want you to know. I finally see what you saw all along." Jeremiah took a beat, then reached for the notebook. Their hand didn't touch, but something passed between them anyway. Not forgiveness, not friendship, just acknowledgement. And that was more than she thought she'd get. A photo, the notebook. No caption, just hashtags. Hashtag flight justice has see us clearly that repair is work. Heard her out, didn't hate her. Might be a first step, but it's not mine to define. Let's keep building. 3 weeks after the slap that changed everything, the industry finally blinked. Not out of kindness, not because it was the right thing to do, but because the money moved. At exactly 7:00 a.m. EST, a quiet but seismic event shook the aviation sector. Veritas Equity Holdings, the trillion-dollar infrastructure and ethics fund, released a statement. Effective immediately, all funding related to aviation operations, infrastructure, and digital modernization will require full compliance with the newly adopted Flight Justice Index, FJI, effective globally. The memo was short, but the implications? Massive. Within 90 minutes, 7 major airlines suspended regular operations for internal audits. 3 union leaders resigned preemptively. Airline stock across the board dipped 12%, and in the middle of it all, sitting in a dark conference room in Atlanta, was Jeremiah Owens. He didn't speak first. Nina did, wearing a crisp navy suit and the kind of expression that makes room go silent. "We're not here to request reform. We're here to enforce it." Next to her, Jeremiah placed the thick folder on the table. Pages and pages of behavioral data, scenarios, bias tracking, weighted accountability frameworks, a section titled, "The Invisible Slaps." The airline executives looked stunned. One finally managed to say, "How do we know this won't destroy customer experience?" Jeremiah didn't blink. "You've been measuring comfort. We're here to measure dignity." By the end of the week, 5 key shifts rolled across the industry. Bias response units were required on board international and high-risk domestic flights. All cabin crew must pass a de-escalation and equity training, supervised by an independent board. A new in-flight digital feedback system was launched, real-time reporting direct to the FAA. Any verified incident of discrimination triggers a 72-hour fleet ethics freeze, halting expansion and hiring. All major airlines signed the Flight Justice Charter, publicly displayed on every aircraft by law. But that wasn't the only news. Something far more permanent was taking shape behind the scenes. In a sleek press room in San Francisco, Celeste Monroe, CEO of Veritas, stood at a podium. Behind her, the Skyline Air logo faded to black. A new name appeared. Monroe Air, she smiled. "We don't erase the past, but we don't fly it forward either." Cameras clicked. Journalists whispered. Celeste continued. "This airline once ignored the warning signs, but now, we're building one where no mechanic has to beg to be heard, where no badge matters more than basic human decency." Then she looked to her left, and for the first time, Jeremiah Owens walked on stage, not as a symbol, but as the new Chief Systems Integrity Officer of Monroe Air. Within 48 hours, stories rippled globally. A small Caribbean airline adopted FJI with pride. Emirates sent a delegation to Atlanta to study Jeremiah's framework. An alliance of African air safety regulators requested to host a regional summit with his team. In Canada, the Minister of Transport called the index the ethical GPS the industry lost decades ago. But in America, it hit hardest in places no camera could reach. A white mechanic named Ray sat beside his coworker Dion, black, 26, and always quiet. Ray rubbed the back of his neck. "You know, I saw that slap video." Dion nodded. Ray cleared his throat. "I think I did something like that once. Not a slap, but dismissed someone. Treated him like noise." Dion said nothing. Ray swallowed hard. "I didn't know how loud silence can sound." Dion looked over, then offered a fist bump. That moment, as much as any policy, marked a beginning. "Do you think we're done?" the host asked. Nina smiled. "No, we just took off." She didn't attend the press events, didn't speak to the media, but quietly, she applied for a role on the ethics review board of a small regional airline. Her application wasn't accepted, but it wasn't discarded either. It was marked as under consideration. Sometimes, progress doesn't look like redemption. It looks like waiting your turn, the right way this time. I didn't ask to be the face of this, but I watched my father work 34 years as a train technician and never get heard. I watched my brother get dismissed at a tech firm when he raised concerns. I've watched too many people stay silent because they didn't think their voice could land. That ends now. We don't just fix planes. We fix how the world treats the hands that fix them. A black screen. Then, white text appears. This story was inspired by hundreds of real ones. If you've ever been dismissed, stay standing. If you've ever been silenced, speak louder. If you've ever felt invisible, know this: we see you now. Have you ever witnessed a quiet act of dignity that changed everything? Tell us your story in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. We want to hear from you. The auditorium at Clayton Tech wasn't large, but it was packed. Rows of students in steel-toe boots and safety goggles sat shoulder to shoulder. Some were still wiping the smell of machine oil off their hands from morning lab. Others leaned forward, notebooks open, hungry for something more than instruction. They didn't come to hear another lecture. They came to hear from him, Jeremiah Owens, the mechanic who changed the sky. He stepped to the mic, not wearing a suit, not even close. Just a plain denim shirt and work boots with old oil stains. The kind of gear that said, "I'm not here to impress you. I'm here because I believe in you." He paused, then asked, "You know what I fix?" A few students chuckled. One whispered, "Planes." He shook his head. "No, not anymore." He let the silence sit, then added, "I fix the systems that ignore people like us." He didn't sugarcoat it. He told them about Tasha, the slap, the silence, the shame, and how he almost walked away from everything that day. I wasn't supposed to be in first class. I wasn't even supposed to be in the frame of that video. But when the world finally saw me, I had a choice. He looked up. To become just another headline, or to build the kind of table where voices like mine can sit and not have to raise them. A girl in the third row raised her hand. "Did you ever want revenge?" He smiled, bittersweet. "Of course. I'm human. But you don't build systems by breaking people. You build them by outlasting the ones who tried to erase you." Another student, tall and quiet, stood. "How do you stay calm when they come at you with hate?" Jeremiah walked closer. "You think I stay calm? You think my hands didn't shake under that wing when she slapped me? I stayed focused, because power doesn't always yell. Sometimes it just does its job so well, the noise has to get quiet." He told them about his father, a railway technician, how he worked 29 years without promotion, even though he trained half the department, how he came home one night, sat on the porch, and said, "Son, we don't get legacy, we just get labor." That night stuck with Jeremiah. That's when I decided to prove him wrong. He pulled up a small model from a rolling case, a scaled version of a new flight training module. "This is Project Elevate, a joint program between Monroe Air, Veritas Equity, and 5 technical colleges, starting with yours." The room gasped. Every student straightened up. He continued, "You'll get paid apprenticeships, direct pipeline access to ethical certification, and mentorship from folks who've actually walked the hangars, not just boardrooms." He locked eyes with a kid near the aisle. "Starting with you." After the Q&A, Jeremiah stayed behind. One by one, students lined up, not for photos, but for handshakes. One boy stammered, "I didn't think someone like me could..." Jeremiah stopped him. "Someone like you is exactly who this was built for." He handed him a signed notebook. On the cover, "Fix more than engines, fix systems." Later, in the faculty lounge, the dean poured Jeremiah a coffee. "She proposed to you, didn't she?" he asked with a smile. Jeremiah laughed. "She did, right on the tarmac. Caught me off guard." The dean leaned forward. "You ever think about saying yes?" Jeremiah paused. "Every now and then. But that proposal was born from guilt, not grace. I needed time, and she needed healing." He looked out the window. "Maybe one day we'll meet again, on level ground." Tasha Linton didn't disappear. She quietly joined a reconciliation program for former airline staff. Not to redeem herself, but to listen. To passengers who looked like Jeremiah. To coworkers she once ignored. To her own silence, and what it cost her. She now volunteers for a non-profit offering conflict resolution training for frontline workers. No camera crews. No applause. Just one seat, one voice at a time. Back in Atlanta, a boy named Kyle watches Jeremiah's speech online. He's 12, black, into robotics. Never thought aviation could be for someone like him, but when he sees Jeremiah on screen, he runs to his mom. Can I fix planes too? She smiles. You can fix anything. A few weeks later, Jeremiah records a short video for Monroe Air's internal channel. He's not on a stage, just in a hangar, wearing gloves, engine behind him. If you're watching this, you're probably someone who knows how to fix things. But maybe you've been told your voice doesn't matter, that your work stays in the shadows. I'm here to tell you, we see you. Your silence isn't a sign of weakness, your calm isn't passivity, and your patience, that's power. The skies are changing. Keep building. We'll meet up there. He ends the video and goes back to work. It was quiet again. No applause, no press, no tension. Just the whisper of wind brushing the sides of the hangar and the hum of fluorescent lights slowly warming to life. Jeremiah stood alone in Bay 4, hands in the pockets of a worn gray hoodie, the same one he wore that morning, months ago, when everything changed. It wasn't nostalgia that brought him here at dawn. It was rhythm, familiar, grounding, like his father used to walk the train yard in the dark before his shift began. Silent, unseen, anchored. Jeremiah had adopted the same ritual, long before anyone knew his name. Today, though, he wasn't entirely alone. Near the cargo doors, a young woman sat on a wooden crate, sketchpad balanced on her knees. Her pencil moved in quick, confident strokes. She didn't notice him at first, too focused on the lines, the weight ratios, the stress points of what looked like a new gear system. He walked over quietly. "What are you working on?" he asked. She looked up, startled, then relaxed into a smile. "The landing gear design. I think the stabilizer is misaligned in the current version. Just trying something new." Jeremiah raised an eyebrow. "How old are you?" 17, she said. "Elevate Cohort 3. He nodded, impressed. A few years ago, someone like her, black, young, female, would have been ignored, passed over, told to stick to the manuals and not get ahead of herself. But things had changed. Now, sketches like hers went straight to the round table once a month, where engineers, pilots, and yes, mechanics sat side by side. Jeremiah never said much at those meetings. He didn't need to. His silence had weight now. As he made his way toward the locker area, he noticed an envelope taped to his door. Neat handwriting. The paper was slightly smudged, as if the writer had hesitated a few times before sealing it. He opened it slowly. It was from Diego, a former ground tech out of El Paso. Years ago, Diego had tried to flag irregular crew assignments and blatant racial bias. He was ignored, pushed out. But after the Jetline hearing went public, the case was reopened. "I didn't think anyone would ever care," the letter said. "But they called me last week, apologized, reinstated me. I owe that to you." Jeremiah folded the letter and tucked it into the small tin box he kept under his desk, one filled with similar letters. Quiet testimonies from people who'd found their voice after watching someone stand still. Refused to retaliate. Just stand. Later that day, his phone rang. The number flashed as unknown caller, but the voice on the other end was clear. "Jeremiah? This is Sheila Tran, CEO at Monroe Air." She didn't waste time. "I wanted to invite you to co-chair our new Coalition on Ethical Aviation Practices. It's not just symbolic. We want you involved in shaping it, from the inside." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm not a speaker," he said. "I know," she replied. "That's why people listen when you do." He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no. As he stepped outside, ready to head home, something caught his eye by the fence line. A familiar posture. Still, watchful. Tasha. She stood outside the gates, not moving, arms crossed but not defensive, more like someone waiting to feel permission. Jeremiah walked slowly across the grass. He didn't speak first. "I wasn't going to bother you," she said softly. "I just wanted to see it. The program, the hangars, what you built." He said nothing. "I've been doing a lot of reading, listening. watching. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to know. I see it now. I see you, and I'm sorry I didn't before." He met her eyes, steady. Seeing is a start. He didn't offer forgiveness or invite her in. He just turned and walked back. That was enough. Near the visitor lot, a boy stood by the gate holding a small model jet in his hands. Jeremiah paused. "You lost?" he asked. The boy shook his head. "My mom works here. She said you helped fix how planes work." Jeremiah knelt to eye level. "Planes still fly the same," he said. "We just changed how people see the ones who keep them in the air." The boy looked at the model in his hands. "I made this for you," he said. "I used to think mechanics were just guys who got greasy, but I think they're more like doctors. They heal things." Jeremiah smiled. "And some days," he said, "they heal more than machines." That night he sat on the porch of the same house he'd always lived in. The same porch he paced before the Senate hearing. The same one where he told his mom he wouldn't back down. The sky overhead was peppered with blinking dots, planes tracing quiet arcs across the night. He knew the passengers inside had no idea, had never heard of him, and that was fine. But somewhere on board were crew members, engineers, mechanics, maybe even a quiet young girl with a sketch pad, who thought twice before judging someone by their title or their boots. Because one man had once stood still after being humiliated, and built something instead of breaking it. Before bed, he opened his email. The last message was titled, "You helped me stay." It was from a young woman in Utah, black, 27, lead tech at a rural airfield. "They tried to get rid of me, said I didn't fit. I almost left," she wrote. "Then I saw your story. I stayed, and last week they promoted me. Now I run the hangar." She ended with one line, "Because of you, I didn't walk." Jeremiah leaned back, eyes closed, letting those words settle in. He didn't need a statue, or a plaque, or a speech. He had something better. Proof. The garden behind Jeremiah's house didn't bloom like it used to. Not because of neglect, he still watered it every other day, but because time and soil had changed. The roses were fewer, the lavender more stubborn. But in their place, something else had grown. Patches of sage, wild mint, and a small bed of marigolds planted by neighborhood kids from the summer program. Every Saturday, they showed up in 2s and 3s, some in hand-me-down jeans, some in uniforms from the Elevate Technical Academy, eager to work on drones, sketch designs, or just listen. Jeremiah never advertised. They just came. That morning, he was setting out a tray of lemonade when a knock sounded at his front door. It wasn't a delivery. It wasn't news. It was his mother. He blinked twice, then smiled wide and real. "You came," he said. "You sent a plane ticket, didn't you?" she replied, patting his cheek like he was 5 again. "You know I never turned down first class." She moved slower now. The cane helped, but her eyes still scanned a room the way they always had, looking not for dust or mess, but for traces of where her son had been, what he'd become. She noticed the blueprint spread across the kitchen table. "Still dreaming?" she asked. "No," he said. "Just refining." They sat for hours on the porch, watching the wind toy with the edges of the napkins, listening to kids in the distance try out flight code on their homemade drones. His mother leaned back, sipping her tea. "You ever think it would come to this?" Jeremiah shook his head. "I thought I'd disappear under an engine somewhere, just fade out." She didn't laugh. She didn't argue. She just looked at him and said, "But you didn't." Later that day, he walked her through the Elevate hangar. The place buzzed with quiet energy, part lab, part garage, part classroom. No one saluted. No one pointed. They just nodded respectfully. That was enough. He led her to the East Wing, where a new mural was taking shape. Painted across the wall were silhouettes of aircraft mechanics, air traffic controllers, and engineers, but not as background characters. They were central, gloves on, eyes sharp, hands outstretched. One figure stood slightly taller than the rest, his boots muddy, a wrench in his grip. Underneath the mural were the words, "Legacy isn't loud. It just holds the line." His mother touched the edge of the wall, fingers trailing the fresh paint. "You gave them something real," she whispered. Jeremiah watched the faces of the kids painting nearby. Some were so young their hands shook when they mixed colors, but they were here. They belonged. That evening, he walked back alone toward his house. The sun was low, casting the valley in soft orange light. A truck pulled up across the street, and a woman stepped out, slender, sharp-eyed, with hair pinned up and a clipboard under her arm. She wasn't media. She wasn't corporate. She was FAA. "Mr. Owens?" she said. "Yeah?" "We're finalizing the new national protocol. We want your input on the onboarding sequence and cultural sensitivity rating system." Jeremiah blinked. "I didn't think you needed me anymore." She smiled. "That's exactly why we do." He nodded, took the packet, closed the door behind him. That night he sat on the back porch again. The air was cool, quiet. In the distance he could hear faint music from the next block. Somebody playing old vinyls, something smoky and slow. It made the sky feel closer, softer. He pulled out the old tin box again. The one with the letters, the notes, the thanks. There was a new one, dated just a week ago. It was from Tasha. She hadn't tried to call, hadn't shown up again, but she'd written. The letter wasn't long, just enough. "I don't expect a response," she wrote, "but I want you to know. I stayed in the system. I didn't quit. I'm doing the work. It's not penance, it's purpose. Thank you for giving me the mirror I was too proud to look into." He folded the letter, added it to the others. That was enough. The final sunbeam dipped below the fence line. Lights blinked on one by one across the yard, the porch, the street. Tomorrow, more students would come. More questions, more sketches. And Jeremiah would do what he always did. Show up, stay grounded, keep the systems flying, quietly, without applause, and always with purpose. Because sometimes, the most powerful legacies weren't built on stages or broadcasted to the world. They were built in garages, taught in hangars, and handed down in silence. One wrench, one word, one kid at a time. And now we want to hear from you. Have you ever seen quiet strength change an entire system? Tell us where you're watching from and what moment in Jeremiah's story spoke to you most. We read every comment.